Hello, and welcome back to the forest garden. 2 days ago was the winter solstice, which makes today the day before the day, before the night, before the dawn, before the day of Christmas, or the 22nd of December. And people often ask, what's growing in the forest garden to eat in December? What is there to harvest, and what do you have for your Christmas dinner? Well, I'm actually eating elsewhere this Christmas time, but if I were to have a Christmas feast, I would like to show you a couple of recipes that are possible, made from 100% forest garden ingredients. On a hill,
near a wood,
where nobody goes,
up a track,
through a gate,
The food forest grows with secrets and treasures for everyone's pleasure, and Rob's discovery.
Hello. Afternoon. Hello. This first recipe is the sort of thing I might have for breakfast on Christmas Day. It's sweet, it's nutritious, and more importantly it's light to make room for anything else one might have throughout the day. It has no name. You can think of one when I finished it, if you like, depending on what it is. The first ingredient, duck eggs, collected this morning. Unlike chickens, ducks don't lay their eggs in a nice nesty box, they just sort of plop out of them wherever they are. And unlike chicken eggs, they contain hearty amounts of omega-3, which is good, especially if you're vegetarian, because it's difficult to get elsewhere. I have a lot of algae actually, spirulina, where I get mine from, and flaxseed. This isn't a practice recipe, because no 2 days in the forest garden are the same. I never know what's going to be around to harvest. I have an idea of the kind of thing, but I've just got to see what it's like on the day and then improvise depending what ingredients are to be foraged. I'm going to give my hands a little rinse. They've got duck egg juice all over them. I may cut a lot of these little bits out and just keep the main features. Like me constantly washing my hands. It looks like it's going to be an egg-based recipe. The next thing are these beautiful Cornish Aromatic apples. I didn't harvest these today. I harvested them in September. But the Cornish Aromatic is one of the few apples that grow here, of the 6 varieties, that will keep until February. So they're available all throughout the winter time. And they really live up to their name, because, not so much because they're Cornish, but because they really are aromatic. Can you smell that? Yeah. Appley. So they are going... Oh. Of course, my brother. I think he's got something to say. Hello, Thomas.
making a good start on my New Year's resolution.
That was his special Christmas message. Thank you very much, Thomas. Something I really should have done before beginning this is put some oil in the skillet to get it heating. This is Tigernut oil. It was produced on site not long ago. Tiger nuts aren't true nuts. They're little stripy tubers. They're a semi-aquatic vegetable, and I grow them in different places where the soil is quite swampy, in the greenhouse and in the pond. And because it's not a true nut oil, it's very good for people who have nut allergies. And how I've made this is I ground up the little tubers, the nuts, through my cast iron. What's it called? It's like a meat mincer, but I save it primarily for nuts and tuberous things and making nut oil. I put them through that, and then the grindings I then put into a cleaned out silicone sealant tube in a sealant gun with a little bit of tissue paper in the end to act as a filter, and just pumped the gun and squashed it all into this bottle. And that much oil represents about 1.5 cups of nuts. So they're really good, oily and fatty, and it's pretty easy to make your own nut oil. I've got the heater on in the caravan at the moment. I'm being a bit decadent. It's normally quite cold in here and the oil is quite solid. But I've heated it up just so I could pour it out the bottle. What's going on over here? That's right, Cornish Aromatic going into the beaten duck eggs. I probably should have sliced them a bit finer, but talking and moving aren't my strong points. That's the stalky bit. That can go in the sink for later. What next? Yacon! The Yacon root. The Yacon is, I believe it's a South American plant, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the word Yacon means water root in Aztec, because it's a very, very, well, watery root, and it tastes very similar to like a crunchy sweet pear. It's actually a member of the daisy family, and it has beautiful flowers, very good for bees. The flower is edible too, actually, and this is one of the tuberous crops that I've had most success with this winter time. I actually harvested it in the autumn, but it's just been stored in my shower room there, and then I will use them throughout the winter. You can eat it raw, although I prefer to eat it cooked. It helps make it a little bit more bioavailable. And Yacon is a very good, what's the word for it? It's a prebiotic, and that means that it feeds the probiotic, the good bacteria in your tummy. So it's good food for them. It contains a lot of inulin, but a little bit like artichokes, if you have too much of it, it can create a bit of a windy effect. And all these things, apple, Yacon, eggs, they don't require very much cooking, so they make for a very quick and easy recipe, which is just what you want at breakfast time. If you try it, it's very much like eating a crunchy pear. It's alright, isn't it? So in that goes. This is sweet chestnut flour. Again, very easy to make. Just lightly roast the sweet chestnuts and then grind them up. I actually used an electric food processor for this because otherwise I can't get the fine consistency. And this will thicken it up nicely. And what I love about sweet chestnut flour is that it's got the best of all worlds, really. It's got the nuttiness of other nut flours, and it has the strength of more traditional gluten-free flours, but also it tastes a lot like a whole wheat flour as well, and it's just a very versatile one that you can use in anything, and I just use it to thicken things up, like soups and stews. I have 5 sweet chestnut trees here on site, 4 female and 1 male. They're not doing very well at the moment. They only produce a handful of chestnuts per year, but they're only 5 years old. Just to make this a bit more flavoursome, it's going to need a bit of a kick. It's going to need some spice. And just now I harvested some Californian allspice from a little spice bush. I'm going to go and get my grater. The flowers and seeds of this are actually poisonous, but the bark is a very, very good... Oh, I don't want the actual sticky bits in there. I don't want to do a Mr. Bean. It's a very good cinnamon substitute, and it tastes and smells very, very much like cinnamon and has similar effects. When the shrub is a little bit older, it's only 2 years old, the bark, the stems will be very thick and it'll be much easier to grate. I'm just grating a bit off the bark here to give it some flavour. Oh, if you can smell that. Do you want to smell that?
Mm.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's like cinnamon.
It is just like cinnamon. I'm using a nutmeg grater because I find my cheese grater, the holes are too big. Oh yeah, so in that goes. I may put one more egg in there because I've put in more roots and fruits than egg. That'll help hold it together. Although that does mean I have to wash my hand again. And one more ingredient. Mint. Because, well, why not? And mint really helps with digestion as well as having copious amounts of vitamins and antioxidants, and it's just growing all the year round, so why not use it in anything where it would taste good? I reckon it'll taste good in this. Maybe. Just stripping a few leaves off. Oh, just enjoying the scent as well. This is just common mint, it's not spearmint or peppermint. I'm actually having trouble getting hold of peppermint. I'd quite like some to plant around different structures to keep the mice out. I don't know how well that works, but mice don't like peppermint apparently. They don't seem to mind this. In fact, there's a mouse nest right underneath this one. What do you think? Is that ready for going in the pan? Well then, here it goes. The oil's just hot enough. I ought to have chosen a bigger pan. Oh no! My foxglove painting from Teeny. That was my Christmas card from her last year. That's one of my gardening customers, a Dutch lady, Digitalis. She painted it for me and I like to keep it stuck up here. It's just fallen off though. I'll put it down here for a moment. So what would one call this? Is it an omelette? Is it a frittata? Is it a mix of weird stuff? Oh, you're nodding. Well, maybe when you watch this you could think of a name for it and let me know in the comments. This needs cooking for about 5 minutes and then cut to it's actually now 10 minutes later because I had it on a very low heat. It doesn't look particularly appetising. The egg's gone a bit grey, but it smells divine. Oh, hot handle, hot handle, hot handle. I have to have the generator going at the moment, unfortunately, because it's been so dark and so wet recently that the solar panels haven't charged the battery at all. So just for lighting and the water pump, I'm just giving the battery a top up. So sorry about the noise. Lemons from the greenhouse. I'm just amazed how lemons grow here. I planted the trees and they just grow. Lemons on Christmas Day. I need not say too much about the health benefits of lemons, how very, very good they are for alkalising the blood and all the vitamins they contain. I mean, the acidity of a lemon is about is pH 3, I think, but as soon as you metabolise it, it goes right up to 7 or beyond. And never waste the lemon skins. They go into a cup. Oh, I haven't boiled the kettle. So no nutrients is lost. I can make a wonderful drink from that skin. And because they are fresh from the greenhouse and organically grown, I can just put the water straight on the skin. And now, a little bit of precious, precious golden honey from the bees. Oh, for its sweetness, but also for its... I haven't got the spoon. For its sweetness, but also for all its medicinal properties that are especially important to benefit from in winter. There are 22 kinds of wild flowers in this honey from just outside. There's also quite a bit of ivy nectar in it as well, which gives it quite a sharp edge. This represents the entire honey harvest from the bees this year. I don't know what the winter's going to be like, so I only took about 2% of what they'd made and left the rest for them. Mm. Mm. So sweet. So very sweet. Well, even though it's now 2:30 in the afternoon, Christmas breakfast. That's bloomin' delicious. I think I might cut the apple up a bit smaller next time. Hello, Professor Rafferty. I put some there for you too. Would you like some?
Yes, thank you, dear. But I think I might have stewed the fruit first, my dear.
Recipe number 2. This is much more my style of cooking. It's whatever's growing, all goes in the pot. So I suppose it could be called a soup. A nice hearty, nutritious winter soup for Christmas Day. What goes in first? A sweet potato. Oh no, I better put some oil in the pot first. Using Tigernut Oil again. There we go. Good amount of Tigernut Oil. It would also help if I lit the gas. So that's what I'll do now. This is going to be quick because all the ingredients don't really need cooking. They can all be eaten raw, but cooking will just make them tastier and easier to digest and bring all the flavours together. And I'm not even going to chop things very finely because I'm going to use my electric blender to blend it all up. These sweet potatoes, I've had medium success with these. These are a variety that grow very well in the southwest of England. They're called Evangeline or Evangeline. Most of the sweet potatoes that one buys in supermarkets are grown in Spain or America, but there are 3 varieties I know of now that do quite well here in the UK. One of them is Evangeline, this one. The other ones that I've not tried are called T65, not a very creative name. And the other one is called Georgia Jet, which I'm trying to get hold of. But they're all delicious. You can eat them raw. They're better cooked. I like sweet potatoes because they've got about 1.5 times the calorific value and vitamin value of so-called normal potatoes. Although I'm growing normal annual potatoes, as perennials. The reason many people don't grow them as perennials is because if you grow potatoes in one place more than a year, the blight comes and gets them. but this year I've tried planting horseradish amongst them to prevent the blight. So we'll see if that works. I mean, the sweet potato is only really a cousin to the annual potato, but I've companion planted it with the same things as I would normal potato, and that is tansy and chamomile, and what else is it? I think it's yarrow. And they don't really help it grow any better, but they give it a really good flavour. And sweet potatoes are all about the flavour for me. I'm not sure how much to grind. I need a wooden spoon. Oops. I'm still quite full from breakfast, so I'm not actually going to eat this now. I'm going to make it for later. Lots of people peel potatoes, but you don't really need to, and the best bit's the skin. That's where most of the nourishment is. I need to get myself a better grater. I need to get myself a better everything, actually. Including an apron. Also, by grating it this way, it really reduces the cooking time by about half, because it's in smaller chunks. If it was in bigger chunks, it would need to cook for longer, whereas this gets it done in about 10 minutes. Still got some Cornish aromatics left, so they can go in as well. Well, this one can anyway. The apple doesn't really need cooking, so I'll just chop it roughly and it will get blended up with the rest of it. That'll just give it a little bit of sweetness. I quite like sweet things. Even soups. Oh, I put the core in as well. Oh, that's fine. Core! I might as well put the rest of the sweet potato in. I was getting impatient grating it, so I'll just chop up the rest and maybe just cook it for 5 minutes longer than I would have. I've actually pre-prepared these because they're quite fiddly. I'm very proud of the sunflowers I have growing. They are called Helianthus maximiliani, and they're a true perennial sunflower, and all the parts are edible. You can eat the seeds and the flowers, but the roots are what I'm after. And in fact, they're very, very similar to Jerusalem artichokes, which are of the same family. They're Helianthus tuberosum. And they're a little bit tough at the moment, so I've soaked them in apple cider vinegar overnight to soften them up a bit. And you can eat them raw. They're absolutely fine raw. They're a bit crunchy, but I'll just give them a head start. So that's my perennial sunflower roots. Yep. What's next? Shallots. These are of the multiplier onion family. Many people treat shallots like annuals, but like most things here, I treat them like the perennials that they are. I harvest about 1/3 of them every year, and then I leave the other 2/3 in the ground to multiply. Sometimes I take them all up and just space them out a bit because they start to cluster together otherwise, which is their nature. But these shallots are quite special because they are a variety that my great-grandfather, who had this land before me, started. I don't know how many years he's been growing them, but many, many decades. And they have fine-tuned themselves to cope in this Mendip environment on the north side of the Mendip Hills. And their flavour is second to none. I've got 4 more to chop, and I'm quite slow at doing it. So, see you in 1 minute. Again, just chopping them roughly because they're going to be blended, and they flake apart in the soup anyway. Are you going to make the joke or shall I? No? Okay. And that's your lot. Made you laugh. What's next? Oh, better give it a stir. Look at those colours. Look at those colours. It goes against my nature to close the skylight when cooking, but that generator sound is just too much for me. I'll stop it in 20 minutes or so. Oh! Now, the basket of leafy goodness. Swiss chard, Swiss rainbow chard, beautiful colours. Parsley. I seldom eat anything without parsley, actually, even my breakfast. It has such an alkalizing effect. It's one of the most alkaline foods there is. Very, very good for, well, curing all sorts of things and just keeping your blood pH on the alkaline side. Perpetual spinach grows all throughout the year. I don't know why anyone bothers with annual spinach when the perpetual spinach is so good. Oh yes. Tree collards, tree kale, or collards. The last video I made, I was waxing evangelical about these because they are so very, very good. Yeah, tree collards, vitamin K, A and C. If you'd like to know more about tree collards, then last month I made a video that's on this channel, so you can have a look at that if you haven't already. At the bottom of the basket, this is the interesting one. It's Welsh onion. It has many names: scallions, Welsh onion, lots of common names, and even the Latin name, Allium fistulosum. There are quite a few bunching onions in the bunching onion family that are called Allium fistulosum, and they have a subspecies, but I forget what this one is. And unlike other onions, you don't use the bulb, you use the top of it. You keep cutting the leaves, like a cut and come again onion, and it spreads quite well. And I'm just going to chop it up and put it in. The fistulosum part of the name actually means hollow, because it has a hollow stem. And it just makes everything taste delicious. And the rest of this, I'm not even going to bother to cut it up. I'm just going to plop it in there. Brilliant. Look at all that goodness. That'll reduce down in a moment. I'll just leave that to wilt. No soup will be complete without a few extra flavourings. Red pepper from my Chinese pepper tree. It's only 3 years old. It would have been 6 years old. My first one died because I planted it straight into clay in my ignorance. This black pepper grinder can't really cope with these red peppercorns though, because they're a slightly different size and they've clogged it up a bit, so I'm going to take them out of the grinder and put them in my little crucible, little pestle and mortar. And unlike black peppercorns, they're sweeter. It's more about the sweet rather than the heat, and they make everything delicious. And if you can smell them, they're not like Szechuan pepper, but they are of that ilk. That was so easy. I'm not even going to use the grinder anymore. It was so quick. Oh yeah, brilliant. This looks like shop bought thyme. It's not. It's thyme that I harvested in the summertime from my herb patch. I dried it and then put it in this jar. Again, thyme has lots of properties. Oh, I wanted to learn them so I could impress you by telling you what they are, but I've actually forgotten. But in this case, it's just going to make it taste really good. Oh, got it there. Okay, I'm just going to let that cook for about 5 minutes. See you in 5 minutes. Last but not least, watercress. I have it growing in different places in the forest garden, in a bathtub outside, a hole in the ground, and also in the greenhouse. This stuff's from the greenhouse. I don't need to talk about the benefits of watercress. I made a whole video about that. It's called Grow Your Own Watercress. Just to plug my own YouTube channel whilst you're here. Can't have enough watercress. Never have enough watercress. It'd be a good idea to top it up with boiling water. I said last but not least, but there's one more ingredient. Seeing as it's here and it's available, just to thicken it up and give it some extra goodness. Sweet, sweet chestnut flour. Ooh, probably a bit too much. I must save some for another time. All I have to do is blend it up, but I will wait for it to cool for a few minutes because I don't want to blunt the blades of my blender, which it would do if I submerged them in boiling water. So that's it. 300 watts. That's 100 watts too many to run from the caravan battery. So that's why I've got the generator going. Excuse the noise. Smells blooming marvellous. Well, I'll eat that later, so you don't have to watch me eat anything again. But thank you very much for watching, and Merry Christmas to all, and to all, good night. See you soon. Bye.
Very nice. Goodbye, dears.
Not that way. Come on, girls.